Mahesh sir.
Yeah, Tushar, we are live now. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. So, a very good evening to one and all present here. I am Tushar Chauhan, founder of Nature Nurture Club, IITMBS. On behalf of IIT Madras family, I extend a warm welcome to our honorable and dynamic guest speaker, Mr. Arpit Maheshwari sir, and I also welcome the audience for gracing and adding value to this vibrant session. So, I request to Divyanshi kindly take the forum and start to intro our club and sir also. Divyanshi, Divyanshi, your voice is not audible. Okay, so I will start. So, welcome to the Nature Nurture Club, a vibrant community within IITMBS. Under the Corvette House, where passionate individuals converge to champion nature conservation, sustainable living, and harness the power of data science for a greener planet. Today, we honored to host our distinguished guest, none other than Arpit Maheshwari sir, an IITian turned natural farmer, dedicating his life towards a farm-centric living, from committing himself toward being an J Topper All India Rank 2 in 2006 and gold medalist in Physics Olympiad, preserving the nature essence. From working in the dream company of youth like Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, and other companies in the world, to switching with a simple nature centric living, he never failed to amuse us with amazing his dedication and willpower. Let's wholeheartedly welcome the co-founder of Jivantika, Mr. Arpit Maheshwari sir. Jivantika is a pioneering pathway focused on to regenerate biodiversity and develop forest tourism by aiming to promote the use of indigenous seed and soil health. Projects like Food Forest, 1.5-acre farm filled with 500 plus trees, 22 varieties of fruit trees, vegetables, herbs, gardens, and crop areas, and native forest. A 5-acre reforestation project under Jivantika have created a sustainable space for an alternative way of living, far from the buzzing light of the urban advancement. I kindly request to Arpit Maheshwari sir, please take the forum and address our eagerly anticipating audience. So please take the forum.
Thank you, Tushar. Am I audible to you? Can you just confirm once?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
All good. Okay. Great. Thanks, Tushar, for the warm welcome and introducing me. I was very excited to hear about the Nature Nurture Club. I want to know more what you guys are up to, what kind of activities you do. So we'll take it up towards the second half of the session. What I had in mind was I just prepared some very simple slides. So I'll use that as a presentation to just walk you guys through what my journey has been, what motivated me, what brought a change in my kind of uh, professional journey, and what is it that we do with Jivantika that Tushar mentioned. So I'm thinking maybe we can spend 20 to 30 minutes there, just walking through that journey and the kind of basic aspects of what Jivantika is. From there, I would really like this session to be more interactive. I am sure many of you would have very different kinds of questions. So we can just spend more time talking about that instead of anything else I have in mind. But let me just give you a background so that you can actually have some more context around what is it that I do. So Tushar, we can take some of the questions you said towards the end, right?
Yes, sir. After your
Yeah. So let me start then. Is it okay for me to share my screen? I think I can do that, right? 1 second. Okay. I think this should be visible, right? Uh, cool. So why don't I just move ahead from here? We'll broadly, it's not, don't think of it as a presentation per se. I just put together some slides so you're able to also see. So I've included some photos for you to actually see because it's hard to kind of give you the full picture. Talk about the first half of my journey. So very much like you guys, and I believe there are people from different years here. It's not just 1 year. I spent 2006 to 2010 at IIT Bombay, and it was one of the best parts of my life. I belong to a city called Jodhpur in Rajasthan, from where I happened to study for IIT, the entrance examination, and was lucky enough to be able to kind of get entrance to IIT Bombay with a very good All India rank. And it was actually life at IIT which changed a lot about me in the sense that it helped me get a lot of confidence to pursue what is it that I really like. So kind of going after your passion is something I learned at IIT. That was something which has always stayed from there. All of you know, like the college life is where you actually explore a lot of other things beyond academics. I also did that. I was very keen on dramatics. I started playing some sports. Before that, I can't even remember having played anything much till kind of 12th class. And there were just so many other aspects of exposure towards other clubs and other activities which keep on happening. And that I think has been very fundamental towards my journey. From IIT, I got placed in one of the best possible firms, Goldman Sachs, which is an investment bank. I worked for over 5 years, more than 5 years, in a combination of mostly Bangalore, but a little bit time also in the United States and the Bay Area. I moved from Goldman Sachs after a few years. I got more interested into tech startups. So I worked as a product manager, which is what I still continue to do, but in a very different capacity. But this is broadly my kind of first part of the journey, and I divide this significantly from the second part, which is beyond the norms. So where things took a very different turn, I think, was for me in 2016. Mm, with my wife, I'll talk a little bit about her. Her name is Sakshi. We decided to uh, take a sabbatical. We were kind of actually in a very good position in our jobs, and at the same time, there was something about our lifestyle, there was something about the personal life which never felt very satisfactory. So what we thought was we'll take a 1 year sabbatical and try and kind of explore some other things. And this is when we decided to travel to South America. We were there for almost a year, most of 2016. And this was really a life-changing experience for me. Besides just being a backpacker, we also did something very interesting, which was we took up a volunteering opportunity. And for almost a good 5 month period, almost close to a semester, they call it a semester even in schools, we were teaching English to middle school children. So from fifth class to eighth class, we were teaching English to in government schools in Chile. So one of the countries in South America is where we volunteered, and this was half of our journey, and the other half was really exploring, traveling, especially in the middle of nature, going to the Amazon rainforest and many different other places. This was, I mean, the experience was amazing, but at the same time, it also threw a lot of very basic questions in terms of our usual life. So when we came back, the original plan, to be very frank with you, was to just go back to our jobs and continue. But I think everything that we got exposed to, and especially some things around our concepts of health, around what we saw in terms of environment and wildlife conservation, really made us question a lot of basics. And we actually couldn't manage to go back to our jobs. We just felt that doesn't make sense. And more than the jobs, it was actually the city life and urban lifestyle. So we started questioning a lot of things. And I'm going to actually very soon pose a couple of those questions to you, which was which was kind of the base of what we were asking ourselves. But long story short, what happened after that, after some more exploration back in India, we decided to move to this small town where I live today, where I'm sitting right now. Its name is Badnagar. It's what you call as a tehsil in North India or a taluka in South India. It's a small town with a population of 40,000 people. It is close enough to what you would know about a big city called Indore in Madhya Pradesh. So this is very much in the heart of the country in central India, which is where I live. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk about what I do here very soon. But my kind of partner in crime here is being my wife, Sakshi. She's the same batch as mine, so a batchmate from IIT Delhi. Um, I took a path of a product manager as profession, but Sakshi was more interested into machine learning, and she's a kind of leader in the machine learning space right now. She has been working for a long time in that. In parallel, she's also been very keen on yoga. So she's a professional yoga teacher. And along with me, she's a co-founder of our initiative, Jivantika. With that, I'll show you a couple of photos. This was our travel time. A lot of fun, a lot of exploration, but very importantly, a lot of introspection. Um, this is where we taught in Chile. We were working with kids, and while we were teaching English to them, they actually taught us Spanish, which was very nice because that helped us do a lot of local travel, which we are otherwise not able to do. Okay, so before I talk about Jivantika, I think it's worth talking about the two big questions which we were asking ourselves almost 7 years back from now. Um, I would like to almost take a 2-3 minute break before in me speaking, and I would like to give everybody, whoever is on the in this session, time to kind of just think about it. If it is possible and you are keen, I would love if you can use the chat, the Zoom chat, to just share your thoughts about these two questions. Very simple. What is our relationship with nature? And two, what is important for our well-being? If you can, just give a couple of minutes to yourself, try and think about these two fundamental questions. And I would love if you can kind of write down, even in a single line, couple of lines, what your thoughts are in the chat. I'll take a couple of minutes break to just give you time to think about it. And then we will talk about Jivantika. Just whatever pops in your head, you don't have to think of a Wikipedia type answer. Just share casually whatever is it that comes to your mind when you think of these two questions. And I would love to read the chat for everybody here if we can. So Siddharth says dependability. And I assume what he means by that is that we depend on nature, right? Our relationship to nature is simply that we depend on it for our very survival, right? Merlin says we are one with nature. Nature is around us and within us. A relationship more like what we have with our mother, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's the very reason we call it Mother Nature, don't we? And this is a very deep thing that you've shared, Berlin. It's not just around us, but also within us. A lot of times we keep thinking of nature as something which is outside of us, right? I used to believe that nature is like mountains, nature is plants, nature is animals. But it's a very deep realization to say that nature is also within us. I'm just going to read a few more. um, so I assume the answer humans is to our well-being. I think other humans, a social well-being is also an important part of our well-being. We belong to nature, not nature from us. So we are a part of nature, I think is what Tushar is saying. Nature is not separate from us. Nature is the provider of everything we have. Absolutely. I mean, that's really the background in which everything happens, right? Every single tangible thing that we can imagine around us, anything we own has come from nature. Even plastic has come from nature. Nature provides us with resources such as food and water, very obviously. Otherwise, we would simply not exist for more than a few days. Nature doesn't belong to us. We belong to nature. True. Nature is the superset, right? Not the subset. I think we are part of whole spectrum of nature rather than thinking of ourselves as unique species. That's a very important point. We'll come to it. I kind of always touch upon it in my Jivantika description. We are part of nature, yeah, and we are made by the nature. Nature is our mother. It feeds us. A good atmosphere around us and within us is important for our mental and physical well-being. This is very important, right? We keep talking about the quality of life everywhere, whether it is the air quality or the depleting water table. Especially, you've heard of Chennai and Bangalore, right? Recent times that there is a huge scarcity of water right now for to even sustain these cities. So everything, a good atmosphere, a healthy atmosphere, a balanced atmosphere is very important for our physical well-being, very obviously, like biologically. But again, taking it one step further, there's mental health dependence. Very much agreed. Nature is everything for us, absolutely. Sunlight, sleep, relationship, exercise, these are things important for our well-being, right? Sunlight is something we undermine it a lot. I never even thought about sunlight as something important for my well-being till like 7 years back. And now I think every single day, if I don't get a few hours of sunlight, there's something very basically going wrong. Um, Provide emotional support. I think this is probably both the answer to well-being as well as nature. Emotional health, I think, is also a part of overall health. Sense of nature comes in agriculture and forest tourism, not in urban city. Sure, when we think of nature, I don't think any of us thinks about like high-rise buildings. We think of away from cities. Spiritual connection with nature, very interesting. Emotional resilience. Wow, you guys are talking about a lot of deep things. I wouldn't even imagine a lot of these things when I was back in college. Preserving the provider and sustainably growing simultaneously with balance of both is for our well-being. Wow, that's again a great point. Awesome. These are really, really awesome. Very much covering breadth as well as depth of the two questions. But to give you a sense, this is what I posed to myself. I was actually asking these questions to myself and trying to connect the dots. You know, when you try to paint the big picture for yourself, you've seen some world, not like everything in the world, but after you've seen some good enough things, you'd really try to make sense of everything. And to me, one of the few things which I was making sense of was I was doing well from a conventional standard. Obviously, I was earning a great amount of money. I was traveling a lot. But at the same time, I don't think I felt healthy holistically. I used to run, by the way. I would run half marathons and stuff. So it was not just a fitness problem, but I felt mm, I never felt I'm healthy in all its dimensions. That was something, and I didn't know what the dimensions were. So that's why the whole question. And there's something which was very, very attractive about nature to me. And I was trying to redefine my relationship. My prior relationship, if I can put it in some simple words, was almost of a consumer. So I used to really love, and very similar to many of you, which is probably what attracts you to this club, right? I used to love trekking. I would trek a lot. I got a mountain bike. I would go out cycling in the outskirts of Bangalore a lot. I would actually done mountain biking in Himalayas. I would go with my wife on all of our travels, do everything away from cities. But in every one of those instances, I kind of looked back and I felt I'm looking at nature in a very consumerist way. I really want nature for myself. And I'm not able to appreciate the full circle of the relationship. And that is what I went out to explore after that. So with that, sorry. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Jivantika. I really don't. So we are at 6:23. I will try and target to give you a glimpse by 6:40, and I would really love to hear questions from you guys. That's the most interesting part for me for any of these sessions. But just because not all of you kind of already know about it, it's good to give you some general context. So Sakshi and I, when we moved to the small town to fix some of these things about our well-being and to explore nature, we started this initiative. We started calling it Jivantika much later, but we started basically farming. And now, once we have kind of gotten the pieces together, I call it Jivantika, the entire initiative. Um, I think I missed something here. Sorry, yeah. What is Jivantika? So Jivantika in Hindi actually literally means life promoting, which is the essence of what we try to do, or you can call it our working principle of life. And we think of Jivantika as two parts. There's a space and there's a community. So Jivantika is a space for sustainable living, and it is also a community around that space. So the space helps to build the community, but fundamentally it is that community of people who are interested or want to practice sustainable living in different ways. Again, there is no uniform definition of sustainable living, but let's just go with the general sense of whatever it is that you all can make sense of. So what is it that we do, right? What are our objectives? We were unsure in the beginning, but this is what we came down to after almost the first year or so. We help people connect with Mother Earth. I think that was one of the things that we were thirsty for. We were really looking for connecting with nature. Somebody referred to it as Mother Earth very recently in our chat. So we actually help people do that. We help people reconnect. I think it's not even connect, it's reconnect, because there is the umbilical cord already. This Earth is where we have come from. We haven't really come from another planet. So we are connected. It's just that there's so much haziness, there's so much chaos that we have forgotten that connection. So we just need to realize that connection exists and appreciate it. In this context, one of the things we also do is we promote a simple and healthy lifestyle. And this is where the word healthy is very important to kind of be taken in all its context. When I say healthy, I don't mean just the right weight or the right diet. I think it has a very, very broad term, and obviously includes not just the physical component, it includes the mental and the social and the emotional aspect. So we try and do that through the space, through our activities. And in this, while doing all of this, I think the other thing, which might appeal to the engineer in you a little more than the other two things, is we try and also do model solutions to some of our environmental problems. Now, this might sound a little too abstract, but I'll give you a couple of examples. So at our farm, not only do we grow food, that itself is actually an environmental problem. The way food is grown is a very fundamental environmental problem. But imagine water, right? We were talking about water scarcity just recently. So although the farm is a very small farm, but we are trying to create a model example of how a single piece of land can be a net supplier, not a supplier because we don't actually create water, but a net it can create net addition instead of subtraction of groundwater. So most agricultural fields today, the amount of rainfall that they get, they actually end up sucking more groundwater for irrigation purpose. But the way we are designing our space, the way we are designing our farm is to try and make sure that we are actually adding more to the groundwater as opposed to taking more out of it. So net there is addition of groundwater. This is just a simple model solution to the problem of water scarcity, or you can call it groundwater depletion. And again, no very fancy rocket science there. It is just water harvesting. Anybody who looks into our traditions knows how to do that. You need to create ponds, you need to fill the aquifer, and you need to make sure that your soil drinks a lot of water. So, but the way we try and do that is in that small space, we try and showcase very simple, sometimes taking inspiration from traditions, sometimes taking inspiration from modern understanding. But you can call it a hybrid of tech, and it doesn't have to be tech in the modern sense of tech, but there are technologies here. And again, a lot of technologies were already invented by our ancestors. So we also need to revive some of that. But these are the things that we try and do. So without waiting further on that, the space, a little bit about the space. I'll show you a couple of photos because I think they might be more appealing and interesting. Our space is just 1.5 acres. We have developed many more spaces after that, but our starting point where the land which we continue to go every day on is what we call a food forest. It is 1.5 acres. You can call it a forest where human food grows because most forests don't have a lot of human food. So we've designed a forest in which human food grows. It is highly biodiverse. So there is more than 70 varieties of trees, and at least I would imagine more than 50 to 60 varieties of non-trees like annuals, your vegetables and crops. We try to grow 80% of our own food because that we feel is one of the very deepest connections we have to the land. While we want to do a lot more in terms of promoting the lifestyle, in terms of doing workshops and everything, but we also feel that we want to continue to grow our own food. That is a very, very basic thing that defines what our lifestyle is, defines what our philosophy is, and defines what makes us happy and healthy. The activities that we do to meet those objectives I was talking about are we host volunteers. We invite people to come volunteer with us at the farm because that's one of the best ways to actually connect. It's very hard to connect when you're only on a vacation mode. Um, the difference between a vacation and a volunteering is very simple. You actually get your hands dirty. You work with the soil, you do everything that is happening at the farm. It can be planting trees, it can be harvesting, it can be pruning, it can be making compost, everything. And that's really getting your hands dirty at the very basic level. We also do gardening and farming workshops to kind of address people who are specifically interested in, let's say, somebody in a city wants to start a terrace garden, or a farmer wants to kind of transition their farm from a conventional farm to, if not whole, at least partially organic. So we try and do some 3 to 5 day workshops for that. And the third, which is actually something that appeals to me the most, is school and college excursions. So we invite educational institutes, usually around in and around our area, not just the town, but also maybe Indore, Bhopal, Ujjain, and Khargone, the neighboring districts, you can say, which is where we've had people from. Anywhere from middle school kids, high school kids, and even college. And among the college, one of the interesting cases has been agricultural college, although that's not our exact audience, I think, because we are teaching them, or we are kind of telling them a very different story from what they learn at their college. But we've had people come in, we've had students come in from that, and that I believe is really great experiential learning. These are usually, because they are in bigger groups, they are smaller duration, but that's one of our favorite activities that we do. This is a space. On the left is basically in the monsoon, the food forest. You can see a variety of different trees, and you can see the different layers. One of the other things which differentiates a forest from a farm is there are multiple layers to a forest. Never does a forest look like a flat, what I call a monoculture, but like very homogeneous. To the right is some of our friends who have visited us, and this is on the left, me with the first banana bunch I got, the very first fruit we got from the farm, which made me very, very happy that day. This is probably 5 years back. On the right is a very simple structure we made. It's a mud house made entirely out of mud. This is kind of the center of the farm. This is where we take shelter. This is also our storeroom. This is our shelter. This is also a kind of community space where we sit and enjoy and take naps and everything. And this structure we made with our own hands without any brick or cement. So every modern structure is made of brick and cement. And we wanted to ask ourselves, how can we go into natural construction? How can we do things which have less of an environmental impact? Um, a little bit about the community part. We feel, because we felt ourselves when we started this journey, we felt very alone. It was very much almost like outcasting ourselves when we made these decisions to move to a small town, to change our lifestyle, to do farming. We were the obvious like crazy people, right? So we felt that we need to kind of connect people who are interested and build a support system. And that is where some of our activities and initiatives are also um, geared towards. One of it is bringing the farmers together. There are many farmers, and not all of them are even inspired by it. There are people who are already doing it for 25, 30 years. We've tried to form a local collective at a state level to be able to help figure out a good market and connect these farmers directly to consumers. So that's a farmer collective. Sakshi and I regularly do consultation on other projects. So a very common question which I get asked is, how do you scale this? The way I think of scaling is not make 1.5 acre, 15 and 150. The way I think of it as just facilitate or guide other people or help other people build similar projects. So make more Jivantikas, make more such spaces. And there's a lot of people who are very passionate about it on their own, who want to do it, but kind of not really always sure how to start or how to design or how to approach it. And with our experience, we try and consult them and make kind of this a more scalable thing. We keep sharing our knowledge and experience over different ways, social media, sometimes Google meetups and so on, sometimes even physical meetups in cities. And one very important thing, which is something that kind of is at the center of it all, is to preserve indigenous seeds, what is commonly in Hindi known as desi seeds, or in English we call it heirloom varieties. So you need to also kind of propagate these. They are getting almost, it's almost like getting in the on the brink of extinction, very similar to wildlife. our our desi seeds, our indigenous seeds are getting extinct and not being propagated. We need to preserve them and we need to multiply them. It's one of the things we do. We have a small seed bank of our own. We try and encourage people to kind of get these seeds in different parts of the country and keep the cycle going. So yeah, a couple of pictures about the community. We have kids. I'm talking about school and college excursions. Kids who really love always kind of coming out in the open. Because if you think about it, being outdoors is in our DNA, right? We want to be outdoors. We do campfires when it's in the bonfires in the winters. A little bit on why Jivantika. I kind of started about my journey. I talked about South America, but then I jumped into us doing this thing of farming on our own. I think when I tried to answer those questions for myself and with Sakshi, one of the very broad conclusions I was able to get to was like consumerism and mindless growth, right? When we mindlessly chase GDP and look at economic growth and the whole consumerist value of our society is basically just destroying, I'll just minimize this, is destroying our home and family. And when I say home and family, I'm looking at the bigger home and I'm looking at the bigger family. So somebody was almost talking about it, right? We are a part of nature and not nature is outside us. So on the left is what I feel is how modern culture looks at it. Like we are at the center of the universe and everything else, living or non-living, exists to basically meet our needs. And on the right is a very different view, which is what many of you were actually talking about, that we are a part of nature and we are nature. It's not like nature is outside us only. We belong to that family. Like in any family, we never think of one person as a very different entity, right? You basically think of any family as has five people. Of course, we all have different roles to play, but that doesn't mean that the entire family revolves around one person. Similarly, I feel like that is the way to think about ecology, environment, and what we call as our nature, right? But the prevailing trends of consumerism and growth are absolutely destroying not only our family, it's also destroying the entire home in which all of us live, our planet. And this is very much something most of you are aware of: climate change, pollutions, and loss of biodiversity. All of this is basically a symptom. This is not the root cause, I think. And these are manifestations of our attitude towards environment. So we both feel this is not just unsustainable. One is we cannot even sustain it. Second is we are also stealing some of the very basic rights, some of the very fundamental things that future generations can have access to, which is what many of you are talking about: clean air, water, food. We depend on nature for survival. Now, when you start doing that to future generations, it becomes a very big moral and philosophical question that what is it that actually justifies that? And personally, I have felt over the years that our health, it's not even that I fix my health. It's almost like my health is always going to be the subset of the health of my ecosystem. If I don't have a happy family, just think of your own family, not like environment as a family. You cannot be happy if your family is not happy, right? This is something all of us would have noticed in our personal lives. Very similarly, we can't be healthy by just eating healthy food or somehow managing to get oxygen. We have to make the ecosystem healthy because that's really the only way we can actually be truly healthy. So with that, I'll just take a quick pause to check the time. It's almost at 6:40. Why don't I rush through this? Because frankly, this is something we can spend more time on the Q&A bit. But I'll talk to you about one of the things that, so why we chose some of the activities and how that fits in the bigger picture, and something I would like to leave you as food for thought. So there are two ways to fix the thing, right? Many of you would have always, like many times, had this thought after watching some documentary or having a late night discussion with a friend, that how do we fix climate change, right? It seems so important a thing of our times. What should be the solution? And the way I have come to think about it is there are two approaches. There's a top-bottom approach and there's a bottom-up approach, right? Top-down, what is how we call it in our engineering ways. So the top-down approach is really the one of policies and regulations and taxes and activism, right? That's how you make some basic changes to our social structure and economic incentives and everything. I feel that's absolutely necessary. It's just that I chose the second one. Because I feel I am more suited towards, or I find the second one more interesting. Not that it is not important to do the activism part. I just never feel I am the activist kind of a person. So one is top-down changes. You need to have institutionalized changes, carbon taxes, water taxes, all of those things need to be there, and many more regulations. But we also need a very basic consciousness driven changes, which is what is bottoms up changes. Everybody, every citizen, every human being can actually do that. Of course, in different capacities. I'm not saying everybody is equally resourceful and has same situation, but in their own capacity, they can always try and bring sustainable living to their current life. And I don't think you need to absolutely take a sannyas or something. You need to also like move away from a city. You need to start farming. Those are great things if that makes sense for you. But I think you can always make smaller changes to your life, whether it is in terms of the food you eat, how you source it from, in terms of waste, in terms of your lifestyle, the very basic aspects of your lifestyle. Um, are we outdoors or not? Are we doing some physical work or not? How much are we addicted to our smartphones? That's a very basic problem of our current generation. Community things like exactly this club, right? Your nature nurture club. Can we have clubs which actually add to our well-being instead of watching that one other movie on Netflix ourselves? Can we have something to add to our social health, right? Can we go to a farm for a vacation instead of Manali or instead of Indonesia? Can we volunteer at a farm to learn something, right? Not everything has to happen on Coursera or other online platforms. You can learn outdoors, you can learn in person. Building. So again, may not be relevant to many of you right now, but there will come a point for many of you when you decide to either buy a house or get a house constructed. I've done like I've constructed 2 buildings over the last 5 years. And the amount of things you can control in that is actually massive. It's just a matter of awareness and access to resources and access to some very good ideas. So all of these are nothing. You don't need to be a politician and you don't need to be somebody in charge to do this. I'm talking about changes we can do to our own lifestyle. And then something which is relevant to you, you are in a college, and I think one of the very important things that's going to happen to you next is to get a job, the first placement we call it, right? Any of you who's interested in sustainability, I would strongly ask you to think, can I even try to make it a career choice? Because not only is it important to fix your personal life, you can also take it up as a profession in some other way. And being an engineer is actually a very great thing because it opens up a lot of avenues for you. What what do we do as engineers? We just solve problems, right? And there's a lot of problems in sustainability, environment, climate change, whatever you call it, which are not fully solved right now. Yes, some of them may not be solved by technology. Some of them need social changes, but there are a lot of technical things also which can add value. Renewable energy is very obviously out there. Yes, we have made progress, but it's still not the majority of our energy source. So there's a ways to fix the cost of renewable energy, the setup and distribution and all of those things. Urban planning, any of you, I don't know if you're into civil engineering. So most people in IITs never look at civil engineering as a very sought after branch. But if you look at it from a sustainability perspective, I think civil engineering is where you can make a significant dent towards carbon footprints and our impact on environment. And couple of other things, climate modeling, we need so much because I work with farmers day in, day out. Even today, it is so inefficient on how much crop losses happen because we are just subject to uh, randomness or things outside our control, actually, is what I should call it. The more we can use our modern technologies of machine learning and modeling, data sciences to try and do some modeling, we can cut down on disasters, we can mitigate the impact of disasters, we can do better weather prediction. Even today in India, we are not at the scale weather is predicted in the US or UK. I have seen we are way less accurate, and that makes a big difference when it comes to ground activities. Um, Other things, ecological engineering. How do you design processes? Now, this is where the whole supply chain thing comes. Any of you looking to go into supply chain, how do you make things engineered ecologically? How can processes be more ecologically sensitive? How do we estimate natural resource ka use? How do we make sure that the impact whether you count it in terms of carbon footprint and many other ways, we need a lot of engineering problems to be solved. They are not solved already. And then we need to reverse global warming. There's no way out of it except to reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we need to, of course, we need to plant trees. That's a very obvious thing. But what are the other ways in which that can possibly be expedited, can possibly be accelerated, right? These are great problems to be solved, even being an engineer. And I really think there are nice options of careers, professional choices coming up in this space. Many unconventional, some of it might be in the policy space also. Any of you interested in kind of pursuing UPSC can think of it as a great policy career it's for themselves, right? But yeah, I think I would leave you to that thought. I think we have 15 minutes. Why don't we do the Q&A quickly? If we end up with just the Q&A, I'll just leave you to reach out to me. The most easiest way is Instagram. We maintain a channel called Jivantika.forest. We really think forest is at the heart of the whole initiative, so we called it forest. I would really encourage you to spread the word about everything we're talking about, and not just about Jivantika. Just spread the word. Talk to your friends, talk to your family about everything. Make it a part of the conversation, and not just something out in a Netflix documentary. And I would leave you with these two big questions again to think more. Think of it as a homework. Take them home and see what are your answers, because not all our answers have to be the same. So I think I can stop sharing my screen, and why don't we do the questions? Is that okay, Tushar? Quick water break also for me. Should I open the chat? Or Tushar, feel free to moderate it if you feel that's great. That's the right way to do it. I would actually let you moderate. Let me know what questions to answer, whether it is you collecting it from people or just people posting on the chat.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your generous word. So far, we have got few questions.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Sir, we have few questions from Google Form.
Sure, go ahead. You can ask me and I'll answer for everyone right now.
Firstly, I ask you from the question that we take from Google Form. Then after we go to the direct audience, then he can ask directly from you.
Sure.
Yeah. So, sir, first question. What can we do as an individual to create a more sustainable future?
Yeah, so yeah, I think this is where I was trying to get towards the end of the conversation. I think because you guys are like IITians, I would encourage you to think of it in two different ways. Before you are an IITian, I think you are a human being and you're a member of the society. So think in your normal capacity first, because the IITians also eat food. We also ride cars. We also do it. Also, there's a very natural impact to everything that we are doing. Our food, our waste, our every activity we're doing, right? Even when we go out to travel, there's an impact on the environment. So I think there are some things which are really a matter of trying to being more aware about it, being more conscious about it, and be a pioneer, you can say, in making those changes. Some of it, many of them, because I've personally made those changes to my lifestyle, I know some of them feel like going against the norm or unconventional or sometimes a little awkward in a social setting. But I think it is important that we start doing that, right? There are small changes when done at a very big scale do create massive impacts. Um, like I'll throw you a simple one. Begin questioning your diet. Like, can not you Tushar, but I mean everybody on this forum. Like, try to question what you eat. Of course, we eat for taste. That is one of the very important things all of us do. But try and also see where your food is coming from and how that links it to all the chains. Like, you don't have to be a farmer. You don't have to be an agriculturist to do that. The fact that you eat food, you should always try and connect the dots. Where is my food coming from? Is dairy having more of an impact than consuming meat on the environment? What about getting my proteins from X versus Y? Should I be eating some vegetables in some season and not in other seasons? All of you are smart enough that I don't want to give you the prescription. Instead of, I think you can always find out those answers. It should be a discovery process. And so this is the first capacity. You as a simple member of the society can do that. And this doesn't need you to be an IIT. Then there is not to really be, I mean, I don't want to make it classes that IITs are different from everybody else. But again, there is something unique that we have, which is we have access to a very great, so we have access to great education, academic as well as otherwise. And most importantly, we have access to greatest networks. I think what sets IITs apart is our networks, not really what we get to in our courses. Very similar courses are taught in many other universities. Um, it's that we really have a lot of smart people packed together in a very small space, right? Um, that creates magic many a times. So try and because 10 smart people packed in a room can solve problems which 20 individuals in different rooms sometimes may not solve. This is what is usually called as network effect. So you're out there, you are part of it. So this club itself seems like a great initiative to me. I'm sure there are many more things that you are doing besides such sessions. There are many more things you can do. I would encourage you to start thinking like, what are the big problems of my times? What is it that I find passion in? And can I even take it up as a career choice? Can I actually think of a placement in a company where I am probably not creating another mindless photo sharing app or something, but I am actually creating value to the society in this way, right? And again, you are smarter than me. You can figure it out once you start that conversation with yourself or other friends of yours, right? I would really encourage you to think on both these lines.
I also belong to a farm family, so I have
Okay,
a very big, deep love towards farming. Sir, second
awesome.
question.
Yeah,
How much land does one need and which area in India should one choose to start their sustainable nature journey?
sustainable journey. Wow. Okay. There is no answer to that. I'll tell you what it depends on. There are factors which it depends on. I'll break the question into two parts. One is how much area of land is sufficient. So I'm rephrasing the question, is sufficient to feed a family of four, let's say, right? And based on my first-hand experience, if your diet is ecologically conscious, so assuming you are growing for yourself, very much like I do for my family, if your diet is ecologically conscious, you don't need more than quarter of an acre. I don't know how many of you know an acre, but acre is a standard unit. In square foot, you probably need 12 to 12,000 square foot or so for a family of four. 12,000 square feet can grow a lot of food. You need to be intelligent about how to do it. I don't think most of modern farming is very intelligent. It doesn't really it doesn't really take into account the beauty of nature in terms of multi-layer, in terms of crop rotation and all of those things. We aren't doing great in terms of the productivity. There is a reason to it because we are doing it for purely commercial purposes. We always try and mechanize everything. When you mechanize, sometimes you also miss out on the productivity. If a family or some person is interested in growing at small scale, like I am, there are ways to actually design more intelligently and use some principles to grow more food out of small land. So very little land, 0.25 acre. I don't know. Tushar, can you tell me how much land your family has? For example, you belong to a farmer family,
We have a 6 acre land.
right? Yeah. So 6 acre for Indian standard is a little above average, but most Indian farmers are low, like I would call it small land holdings. Like ours is like 1.5 acre is the average Indian farmer. Six is also not the biggest number, but yeah, you need really smaller than the average Indian farmer to actually grow your own food. Number one. Number two, where in India should you do it? It depends on your objectives, actually. I can't tell you a one-shot answer. I think the most important thing is to ask yourself, what is it that you're trying to achieve? So I told you my objectives. I want to grow my food. I have an educational component to Jivantika. So I want to kind of invite schools and colleges. I want to invite volunteers. I want to run a farmers collective. So there are almost now over the years, I've come up with 5, 6 things I love to do. So the choice of geography needs to really be aligned to your objectives. right? For example, if you want to host a lot of people, it probably doesn't make sense to live in the middle of the forest because you become more less accessible, right? So many factors come into play there.
So one more question, then after we
Yeah.
directly go to the audience.
Okay, sure.
That's how much money do you need to save before jumping into living an off-grid lifestyle?
Okay, so frankly, I don't know because I don't live off grid. I live um again, it's like a very hybrid life that I live. I live in a small town, so definitely not a Chennai like city or a Bangalore like city. It's not rural. And I don't live in a village of 20, like 1,000 people also. So it's kind of in between it. I call it semi-rural. So it has the beauties of rural and it has also some amenities of urban. Again, I don't live off grid because I continue to work on projects. I don't want to be, so I'm not a person who's like against everything that happens in the modern society. It's not that. I continue to be a product manager. I work with a few companies as an advisor or as a consultant, you can say, because I like doing that. It's actually an important part of my life. I also feel that it is not possible. I wouldn't be able to. It's not like I wouldn't be able to take this session. You can kind of do that, but I don't want to go off grid because that's not the point. Being off grid sometimes actually um, goes in the other extreme. I think what is important is to figure out the right balance for oneself. So you have to figure out your position in the grid. And I have friends who live absolutely off grid. I have a lot of my old friends who live absolutely a very modern city lifestyle, highly consumerist. I am somewhere in the middle. But what I'm really encouraged is figure out your own balance. To live a truly off-grid lifestyle, I cannot say how much money is also needed because it depends on what kind of lifestyle you envision. You can do it with relatively less money. I have seen people save probably just 8 to 10 lakhs and start an off-grid farm, and they have been successful. It also depends on your commercial inclination to your farm or your initiative. With Jivantika, I have always had a relatively clearer idea that I have other avenues to earn money. So I would rather keep this a non-commercial activity. But there are friends of mine with a very similar mindset and attitude and philosophy who are also using this initiative of sustainability to earn money. So, and I actually go out of my way to promote careers. I think there should be careers. Not everybody interested in sustainability should do it with a charity kind of a mindset. I don't think that's great. To make it a part of mainstream, you need people who are doing it out of passion. Some people like me who are like NGO kind of a setup. And I think I have people I know who are doing great work there. And you also need companies, you need startups in sustainability space. You need really profitable things also happening. So you should think of it as a first where you lie. And that answer is very personal, right? So how much money you have can decide whether you want to kind of do it professionally or non-professionally or semi-professionally. And that really is important to answer that question of how much money is needed. I can't really tell you like X lakh money is sufficient. If you envision a lifestyle which still needs a lot of money, maybe even 50 lakhs is not sufficient, right? It all depends.
Thank you, sir. We could directly go to the audience. So
Yeah, I saw a couple of people raising hands. Yeah.
Yeah, Divyans, you can ask your doubt. Divyanshi, Sachit, you can ask your doubt. Sachit have a very deep doubt. You can
Okay. Yeah.
how to read in the chat box.
Oh, it's there in the chat box. Oh, sorry, I didn't even go there. Sachin. Namaste, sir. There's a lot of tree cutting and trimming being done with permission from RFO in our layout in Bangalore. They say RFO is asking bribe to give permission, hence they are cutting without permission. How can we stop this? How can environmental activism grow? Yeah, activism is a whole um, kind of complicated thing, right? I am not the best person, but I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of very dear people who are in environmental activism. And how you do it is really create a citizens movement. I think there is just no other way. Uh, a government machinery is kind of designed to be corruption, corrupt. Actually, sorry, a government machinery is designed to be corrupt. There is no way you can actually just morally make them not corrupt or some other things, right? So if RFO is asking bribe to give permission, I have come across it. I have even in my town, I have seen this, right? We don't even have an RFO, but there's a municipal wing which actually handles it. So the people cutting trees without permission. Now, I think the only way to do it is just collect people because there is power in numbers. When, and this is the bottom up approach also, but we live in an age of digital social media, and it is easy to surface important issues in ways if you know what I'm talking about, right? So you can actually like let these things go viral, right? We have a lot of nonsense going viral all the time. So why not actually make this? And I think you need really to gather people. If one person does it, it really never gets to the traction. To make it a citizen movement in whatever layout of Bangalore you live, just try and get people together because why would anybody who lives there want trees around them cut, right? They should ideally be invested in it. They should have incentive. And that's the only way you kind of fight. You don't really want to fight RFOs. I think what you really want to do is just save the trees. And there are ways you can do that. In Bombay, there's this famous RA forest, which I loved actually doing going to that forest during my college time. And a lot of people in Bombay, I can imagine in tens of thousands, got together to say that this is one of the last left lungs of the city. Like most of Bombay doesn't really have trees, but RA was one kind of green patch, and you can't actually cut it for metro construction and so on. Uh, Long story short, they couldn't reverse everything the government sanctioned, but they were able to push back a lot. So maybe you will not be able to save every single tree that's getting cut around you, but the moment you create some force and some pushback, you will be able to you'll have some balance somewhere. That you can't, you will at least make sure not all the trees are getting cut. So I think the RA story is actually a helpful one. And there are many others in different parts of the country you can take inspiration from.
So thank you, sir. Next, Prathamesh, you can ask your doubt.
Prathamesh, is it? Yeah, Prathamesh has written. Should I just read it there? So Prathamesh's question is, Mike, how do you convince a farmer to shift into organic farming as it takes time to settle in and probably in the beginning they have to deal with losses? Is it true? Please correct me if I'm wrong. You're absolutely right, Prathamesh. I think, yes, for an ordinary farmer to go organic, uh, by ordinary, I mean somebody who depends on it for their livelihood and are somebody who's not super resource incentives. I'm talking about a small to medium landholding farmer, not like a very rich farmer who has 200 acres. One, it takes time to settle in, and there are losses in the beginning. The way to think about it is it's like a diseased body, right? Once we catch a strong disease, imagine like I get stuck with COVID. I need to give my body time to recover. I can't start running the day I kind of get out of bed. I need to go slow. So if that's true with land, that's true with soil. You need to go slow. You can't just imagine being profitable or generating money from the first year. So the only way to do this uh, is to convince the farmer to go step by step. Don't try and convert all your land into organic on the first year. If you have 6 acres, assuming Tushar's father or grandfather, whoever it is, you begin with just half an acre first. In the first year, just try and convert half an acre of the farm organic. It's almost like a very hedging one approach, right? And try and like I go out of my way to encourage people to grow food for themselves. Just use that patch to grow food for your family. Don't even sell it, right? And once you get a hang of how to do the land transformation, once you get to that point, slowly convert it within a matter of 3 to 5 years is a good time frame, depending on how much debt ridden a farmer is. 3 to 5 years, you can actually make your farm organic step by step as you learn the processes, as you also start saving your seeds because seeds are one of the big costs for farmers. You you will be able to get to a similar similar level of production as before. I think that's the only way it can be done. Unfortunately, there is, and again, this is the bottom-up approach. The top-down approach is go shamelessly after the governments to try and give subsidy to farmers who are trying to get organic. You have to subsidize this. There's no way you can expect this to happen by the farmer's own initiative. To get it done at scale, you really need government policy changes to encourage organic farming, which we have very little of today. What should I take next, Tushar? I think we can spend maybe five more minutes, so maybe a couple more questions.
You can take it out of Bhagavad first.
Bhagavad, right? Can you share some of the challenges you face when transitioning to a sustainable lifestyle and how you overcame them? Very broad question. So, for me and Sakshi, frankly, the comforts never really mattered, I think. So, for example, we gave up on having a fridge in our house. That was part of, we never felt that it is justified to stuff a lot of food into your fridge. We just try and eat more fresh and never really have a lot of kind of things to be refrigerated for most part of the year. We never really cared about the comfort kind of things, fridge or we never even had an AC and things like that. That was easy. I think the biggest challenge is really the social life, because if you want to kind of set your lifestyle, but people around you, whether it's your family or your close friends who you hang out with, have a different lifestyle, it's a little hard in the overlapping areas, because there's part of our life which is absolutely personal, where it's okay, it's your call. But there's part of your lifestyle which is more public, right? So that's one of the challenges. The other challenge was also, what else should I talk about? In the beginning, when we were not able to grow our own food, I think for us, food is at the center, of the heart of it all. Just sourcing food which is authentically grown and kind of from good farmers was a challenge, right? To create that network. So what my philosophy is, any consumer, what they should try and do is, not everybody can grow food, I know. What they should try and do is connect to a farmer. Like the way you have a concept of a family doctor, right? Whenever you have even a cold, you just reach out to your family doctor. Have a concept of a family farmer. Like build a relationship with one or two or three farmers at max. And with three farmers, you should have like 80-90% of everything you eat. And number one, try to buy from them directly. Do not buy from market. Market is where the consumer gets screwed, the farmer gets screwed, and basically that's where a lot of problems happen in terms of even the economics. So to me, when I knew the answer, but it was very hard to kind of connect to those farmers. So I slowly transitioned towards growing most of it myself. But even today, the remaining food that I don't grow, for example, we don't grow our own rice or sugar cane or like jaggery and all, but we source it from people we know. So we have built that relationship over time. It's a little hard. It takes a lot of time. And I think just transitioning to a sustainable lifestyle, many a times, the most, assuming somebody is fully convinced and driven, the biggest thing is it needs time. In a very, very busy, hectic lifestyle, you never take out time for these things. And we know it in the form of health. Many people subconsciously deprioritize their health because they're just too busy in their work or their studies or something. We've all been there, right? So it's one of those things. To really have a sustainable lifestyle or a healthy lifestyle, you need to give time. If you cannot take out 2 to 3 hours a day to, and this can have different ways, like maybe you cook your own food, maybe you grow your own food, maybe you just understand things more. I think in the beginning, it's a lot about educating yourself, right? What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. But in different ways, you want to first take out time. And I think so for me, it was a no-brainer that I want to really invest my time into it, because it felt like this is the only thing, or this is the most important thing which drives my happiness. And if I'm not using my time proportional to what I am getting happy from, then it is a very bad optimization, right?
Thank you so much, sir, for giving your precious time. And one more request, our few team members wants to meet you. So if you have time, so please give us. Few of the members wants to meet you.
Sorry, what did you say? I missed what your team members want to what?
Few members wants to meet you. In
In
Jivantika.
person, you mean?
Yeah, in person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a concept of I mean, you guys are in college, right? You're not working professionals. So the best thing to do is to take out time during our seasons. Where I live, the season, like the green season or the planting season is mid-June to mid-February or end of February is the best time. So we have two seasons. We've all learned in school, Kharif and Rabi. So come during that time, we host volunteers, we have a schedule, we have a way for you to kind of make a booking, come here. We even have a space for you to live. So there's all that setup. We have hosted dozens, not even dozens, many, like more than 50 groups of volunteers we have hosted over the years. So yes, come together always. It's and one of the best thing is to like, bring a couple other like-minded friends. Don't come alone, which makes it even more enjoyable. So yeah, whenever your semester break, maybe your odd events, because this one is usually in the summers, maybe then between the even and the odd and the even semester break is when would be a great time December to come here. But if you are short on time and can't volunteer or don't are not interested in volunteering, you can always come for a visit and just spend a day here. That's also a possibility. Check
Yeah.
out my Insta page. We have things like that. And if any of you is very interested in actually pursuing something in sustainability or wants to have a deeper discussion in something around farming sustainability, I also open up my calendar for consultation. So you can just book a 45-minute call with me and we can do a one-to-one video call there also.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for everyone for joining this session.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tushar. I really love your initiative. And not you, I mean, just you. I mean, whoever is kind of a part of your club. Keep these things going. This has to start at the school and college level. I always keep saying it. It is not something you realize when you're 40. You guys need to make this happen earlier. I think I felt I was late in my life journey. And given the given the circumstances of our current world, I think we need to make it happen at as early in the life cycle of any human being as possible. So our schools and colleges really need to take the first leap in first educating us about what is sustainability, why does it matter, what can one do, and give time and space for these dialogues to happen. So yeah, thanks. Great that you guys reached out. I'm very happy and yeah, I enjoyed the session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for everyone for joining this session.
Okay, bye.
I request to my sir, please stop the YouTube live. Mahesh sir, I again request to Mahesh sir, please stop the live recording of this session. I request to Mahesh sir, please stop the live recording. Siddharth, please check on YouTube if recording is stopped, then we can leave this.